Donna, Donna, da 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 da. Are you kidding me? It could have been anything else. So, back in the crazy days of the pandemic when every collectible was going crazy, and Pokemon especially was going crazy, people were lining up outside of $8. That's not what I paid, but someone paid that. So Pokemon especially was going crazy. People were lining up to get sports cards and other cards and Pokemon cards outside of Walmart on release day and fighting about it. And some of it, or most of it, or all of it in regards to Pokemon, was due to Logan Paul, depending on who you ask. But I mean, the economy was going crazy. And it could have done that anyway, but I think Logan Paul had some effect. At the very least, he was in the zeitgeist and talking about Pokemon and doing a bunch of things, visiting the largest Pokemon collector. But in case you didn't know, he bought a case of base set Pokemon from, the Wizards of the Coast Pokemon, the very first Pokemon sets. And as far as people knew, there weren't any cases in existence. So a case is a certain number of boxes in a cardboard box with stop tape on it. And if you've watched Alpha Investments and a couple of other channels, they will tell you it's easy to get stop tape. So therefore, stop tape is not telling you whether this thing is authentic. You can repackage old cases. Unless there's branded tape on it, maybe. But I mean, still shouldn't trust a case. And there shouldn't even necessarily be a premium on a case because the boxes inside themselves are sealed, right? So if you want the case amount of boxes, which in the case of Magic the Gathering and a lot of other things, is usually 6 boxes in a case. Sometimes that changes, but let's say there's 6 boxes in a case. If you want 6 boxes, buy 6 boxes. You don't need the case to be sealed to prove to you that it hasn't been tampered with because the boxes themselves are sealed, unless they're Lorcana, which tells you that don't buy Lorcana for any sort of investment purposes or expecting them to be worth something in the future, because it's not. If it's not sealed, you can't trust that it hasn't been tampered with, because you can compare sealed versions. Like you bought a sealed box back in the day, and you remember what that plastic felt like, or you still have it, and you can test it against the new one you bought, so you can tell that it isn't tampered with. But if you've never handled it, you have no idea. So that is what happened with this case that Logan Paul bought. He thought that it had been authenticated, but it was by this company that had never authenticated anything Pokemon related. It was sports cards, and they authenticated that this was a real case and it was not tampered with, and that the wear marks and that kind of stuff, all this was authentic. But when he opened it up, he was going to get Pokemon boxes. So a lot of people told him, no, you've been scammed, because the Canadian guy from Alberta had been kind of a known scammer, or at least a known suspected scammer. Basically, people thought this case was bullshit. So Logan Paul decided to open it up and open one box just to prove whether it was real or not. And he had this whole big event thing on his YouTube, and it was fun to watch. And he goes to open the case, he pulls out a box, and everyone's still convinced that this box has Pokemon base set booster packs untampered with inside. They open the box, and out comes, well, not out comes, but this is what's in the box. To which Logan Paul says, are you kidding me? It could have been anything else, because these are relatively worthless, right? So I paid, I don't know, $60, $100, I can't remember if you include shipping, to get these. Mostly because I'm amused by the Logan Paul thing, but also he did me a favor. He reminded me about these because I enjoyed opening these back in the day when they came out, because I am a huge G.I. Joe fan. And I don't have any. I mean, I think I have a couple somewhere in the boxes. They using them as dividers for my old '90s Magic cards. But I would much like to open a bunch of these, because I think I maybe opened 5, 6 packs. I've never opened a full box of this stuff because in the 90s I was a teenager and could not buy a full box. The first time I bought a full box was Portal 3 Kingdoms back in 97, 98, I think. Anyway, yeah, we opened a full box then, but even then I split on it with some friends. So I didn't start opening full boxes until I got back into Magic in 2020 with Zendikar. So I started opening full boxes then. So I'm looking forward to going through G.I. Joe, and I'm guessing this is going to be a longish video because I'm probably going to talk about every card and every character and stuff, but you never know, I might forget to do that, and it might be a short thing, and we'll just burn through it. But how many packs are in this? So there's 12 trading cards in each booster box, but how many packs in total? This is copyright 1991. Impel, never heard of them, but it doesn't tell me how many. Oh, 36 packs. This seems like, well, I guess it's a shorter box than Magic, and they've packaged it weird. I do like the packaging though. Nice little display case. And you can tell how things have evolved because in 1991, we've got the display case with, oh, that is General Hawk, not Duke, because Duke never wore that jacket. But General Hawk has brown hair. I don't know what's going on. It's probably Duke. Because Snake Eyes wasn't necessarily the most popular character. He was slowly becoming the most popular character. And I think it started to solidify around the silent issue of the comic book series by Marvel. That issue where he's doing this assassination mission or reconnaissance mission, but there's no dialogue because Snake Eyes doesn't talk, right? So it's just interesting to see that nowadays everything would just be Snake Eyes all over the place. So we got Doc here. So I don't know if you know much about G.I. Joe, but there's like old G.I. Joes and new G.I. Joes within the original 80s line, because it was the original series of Joes that came out. They were very strictly, authentically military, and as the series progressed, they became less and less so and became a little bit more crazy. Basically around the Sergeant Slaughter era, that's when things, I guess it goes from being, real military dress to casual military dress. But even before that, the next wave after the first wave of Joe started to be, they weren't wearing the, standard issue military outfits. They were wearing essentially would be military costumes that would denote something of their character. So Doc was one of those originals, and I guess this is like a special treatment card. And then on the back, you got the honor roll, which is kind of I think they have the honor roll at the end of the comic books, but it's similar to the cards on the blister pack, like the back of the blister pack for the toys. There's like a card on the back that told you their background and then their stats. So it's a Cobra officer. Oh yeah, and they had the covers of the comic books too. Yeah, shit. That was one of my favorite things. Because I didn't have all the comics, so just having the covers were. I'm gonna set the covers aside on the special treatment side. And Blaster. He must have been post G.I. Joe movie, because so I moved and then didn't have cable anymore. I was really upset I couldn't watch G.I. Joe. But there's that period after I never saw the G.I. Joe movie until the early 2000s. So there's a point after Arise, Serpentor Arise, that I didn't see until the late 90s, mid 90s, early 2000s. So there's some characters I may like, later characters I don't know, but Shipwreck was one of my favorites. I think it's one of everyone's favorites. And Road Pig, I kind of know, because so I pick up on certain characters because they were toys, and I would see them in the toy aisle, or I would have them, but I didn't actually see them in the cartoon. I think, who's the MP that has the dog? I had that guy, and I liked him, but I didn't see him in the series because he came out in the series after that. Rock and Roll, he's one of the original Joes. Then there's special missions. So there's There's the G.I. Joe main comic line and Special Missions. Special Missions was more military tale than adventure, whereas the main G.I. Joe was more adventure and also drama and that kind of stuff. It was more like the cartoon, and Special Missions was more like a military tale. So that was one pack. So I guess it is going to take a while to get through. But I mean, we now know what all the different cards treatments look like, and it'll be easy to go through. Special treatment, and that's the Blackbird. My friend had that. Or is that the drone on the Blackbird? Or is it just drawn weird? Anyway, it basically, G.I. Joe, one of their toys that they had was the special, basically the stealth bomber. I don't know, the numeric designation I've forgotten. So you got vehicles as well as characters. The Dreadnoughts. Everyone loves the Dreadnoughts, and this is one of my favorite covers too. Oh wait, that goes over here. Special Missions. Yeah. Now I think this was one of my first vehicles, if not my first vehicle. And the Snowcat, it's great, and love Snow Job, and and right around this point is when obviously G.I. Joe was doing really, really well, and the toys got bigger and bigger. So G.I. Joe doing really well means that they had an entire toy aisle to themselves. Like, basically, you would go into any store and there would just be a ton of G.I. Joes, and they'd be selling. There'd be more G.I. Joes than there ever was Star Wars toys. But I mean, Star Wars was pretty close, especially around when Episode 1 came out at the end of the 90s. There was almost as many Star Wars covering a toy aisle as there used to be G.I. Joes, which had kind of petered out by that point. But basically, the vehicles obviously started to sell really well too, and then they got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then, of course, the largest play set, which is technically a vehicle as well, was of its time, and I think to this day, the largest toy play set is the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier. And if almost no kid had that, because that would have been like $200 in the 80s, which would be like close to $1,000 now. So no kid's gonna get that for Christmas, except for the kid that has the rich parents that are trying to buy his love. So I don't know. Night Vulture, I don't know him, but I remember Televipers came out just as I was in the process of moving and not having cable, so I remember those. Special Missions, Sneak Peek. See, don't know that guy. Oh, it is Hawk, so that's my answer. Why? I thought Hawk had brown hair. Maybe it's just his helmet is brown, and that's what I'm thinking of. Or maybe he had a different color hair in the comics from the TV show, and I'm mixing up the two. Avalanche, so more snow characters, but I don't remember him. Fast Draw, so this is a character I never saw in the show, but I had, or my friend had, and he had this big backpack with rockets, I believe, and I liked him as a toy. He was pretty cool. But that was the thing with the G.I. Joes. They came with a lot of kit, and more as the 80s progressed into the 90s, the toy line expanded, and they just came with more and more cool little, kitschy item, or not kitschy isn't the word, but knockdown. I'll get back to the other thing, but Storm Shadow, obviously a favorite of almost everybody. If there were value in these cards and selling them single, which I doubt there is, Storm Shadow would be one of the big ones. So, but yeah, so they got more and more elaborate, and they were more gimmicky. That's what the word I was looking for. They were more gimmicky. Tunnel Rat. Didn't see him in the cartoon, but he was actually one of my favorite characters, even though all I had was the toy. And I loved the backpack that he came with, and I just loved his look. And he was a Target exclusive for the Classified, and I didn't get him because I was driving through the States at the time, and I probably maybe could have found him, but no, I think I stopped trucking as he came out. I'm not really sure. Anyway, I don't have him for Classified, but I'd like to have him in the Classified series. So the Mobat was like one of the first big vehicles, and I think that was an electronic vehicle, so it drove on its own, like it was battery operated. It wasn't remote control, which would have been way cooler, but they didn't really have, I don't think, that would have made a toy way too expensive in the 80s, and I don't think it would have sold very well. I don't think it would have worked very well. This Special Missions, I think that's the introduction of Chuckles, another character I never saw in the cartoon, but really liked as a toy. And I watched, in 2020, I watched like the first couple of seasons of Miami Vice, because I was a kid when it came out, and I wasn't allowed to watch it, and I don't really remember it. And I always thought it was like a dumb show, but my cousin convinced me, no, it's a pretty good show. So I watched it, and I'm like, no, this is pretty good. Anyway, there's a character that shows up for one episode that's like this assassin that's basically Chuckles, so I'm sure that's where they got Chuckles from. Blaster again. Shipwreck again. Road Pig. This seems to be a copy pack. Well, maybe not. Grunt. Grunt was one of the original G.I. Joes. Royal Guard. That, I don't remember that at all. Ozone. Toxo Vipers. Yeah, my friend had a few of those. Cobra. I don't remember that Cobra Commander treatment. Obviously, everyone remembers this Cobra Commander treatment. Did I miss any of the covers? No. Oh, yeah. This one. I don't know why they need to be separated on camera, but I'm enjoying this, so... And that's the thing, is this video is more for me than... And anyone else who's like into G.I. Joe and into the G.I. Joe cards. I mean, if you're not, I don't know why you're still here, but maybe I'm convincing you to get into G.I. Joe. So this is my elevator pitch, is that of these IPs from the 80s that were, you know, huge, the only one that I think holds up is G.I. Joe. Like, you can go back and watch the cartoons and they're just as good as they were in the 80s. Whereas the other ones tend to be pretty ridiculous. And I don't like I mean, there was a cool Transformers series on Netflix. It was a three different series, War for Cybertron, I think it was. I did enjoy that, but for the most part, Transformers is just kind of ridiculous now, and I don't really care about it. But G.I. Joe, to me, is still pretty awesome. So here we have a Snake Eyes. So again, if any card was worth anything in this series, it would be Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, because that's kind of the two most popular characters in the whole show. Dusty, I like Dusty, and I forgot about the episode where he has some issues, and he's like problems with his mom and stuff like that, and he's like, seems like he's betraying the Joes, but really it was like a double agent thing. It was a pretty good episode. They had some pretty interesting little storylines. But yeah, so in 2020, I believe, when I was still trucking, I was still in the States, I went into a Walmart and hadn't been to a toy aisle. I mean, other than buying kids' toys for like for Christmas and their birthdays, I didn't, I didn't go into toy aisles. But then I just happened to be in the toy aisle of this Walmart in the States, and I'm like, oh shit, they have G.I. Joes on the shelf again, but they were. So there was a Storm Shadow, Snake Eyes, and Baroness, and I bought the Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes. Should have bought the Baroness, because those things dropped, like basically were taken off the shelves almost immediately by people buying them. So I lost my chance to get the Baroness at retail. But yeah, so Stalker, he's one of the original Joes, but also he's deeply connected with Snake Eyes storyline, so he's relevant in both the the newish costumey G.I. Joes and the military aspect. He's just a cool character. And then we have the Hiss tank, which is I backed the HasLab for that Hiss 6-inch Hiss tank, and it's going to be coming soon. And I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, so the it was interesting trying to collect G.I. Joes off the shelf during the pandemic, because they were just disappearing immediately. And now, because of that stuff, basically I think Walmart just doesn't want to carry G.I. Joe, because they removed all the pegs and stuff like that. And I think Hasbro has finally figured out their supply issues, and they may now be in oversupply because they can't get it into retail, except we have, Toys R Us in Canada, so we can still get stuff on the shelves, but I think it's harder for other people. Although I have been seeing toy collectors getting G.I. Joes off in Walmart in the States, so maybe it's just in Canada that they're just not coming up in Walmarts because Toys R Us is selling them, and maybe they're selling better at Toys R Us than they were at Walmart. Anyway, the point is, there haven't been G.I. Joes on pegs in Walmarts for over a year now. And even when there was, it was almost impossible to get them. Basically, once Lady J and Flint came out, they started. That's when they disappeared off the toy shelves because Lady J and Flint stayed on the pegs for quite a while. So I assume that they weren't selling well enough because they were now in oversupply. And it has a little checklist of things. And to get to the Flint and Lady J, those are my two favorite characters. Because they were also, I think, my two first G.I. Joes that I got when I was a kid, when they came out. This is the original cover, the very first issue. It's pretty awesome. So they are my favorite characters, and I was really happy to get them, and I don't care that they were in oversupply and that maybe they're not the most rare G.I. Joes, but they're my favorites. And Quick Kick is pretty cool. I know when I first started watching G.I. Joe, people were probably actually more interested in Quick Kick and Spirit than they were in Snake Eyes. But as I said, that kind of started to shift, and people started becoming more interested in Snake Eyes. In fact, in the first is it Pyramid of Darkness, I think, where Storm Shadow sees Spirit as being the biggest threat to him, not Snake Eyes. And then Quick Kick being the second biggest threat to him. Snake Eyes is just doing Snake Eyes things, but no one's really that, he's not the coolest character in the franchise like he is now. I was worried for a second there. I didn't see the red light and thought I hadn't been recording. I'd been going. So I've basically been talking to myself, but no, that didn't happen. Night Raven, there we go. That's the copy of the stealth bomber. I don't see the drone on the back. But they added that. Obviously, the U.S. didn't have a. Well, maybe they did. Maybe they had a reconnaissance plane with a drone in the back, or maybe it was just combined from that. And I don't remember Ice Sharks. Yeah, that probably came out after I didn't have cable. Voltar. I don't remember him in the show, but I do remember him on the pegs. I don't think anyone I know actually had him, but I remember seeing him a lot. So maybe that was when, again, G.I. Joe was on the wane, and then there was an oversupply. Because this is what happened, basically, is that G.I. Joe went into oversupply in the 90s because, the cartoon was off the air, the cartoon had gotten shitty, and then also was off the air, and so interest in G.I. Joe started to wane while Hasbro was probably, in pump mode. So there's a Duke. And Scarlet in the same pack. So basically the rest of the 90s was just like these G.I. Joes that no one cared about sitting on pegs forever and eventually going to liquidators. The Tomahawk, I had that too. And the pilot that came with it, but also Rescue Guy, whatever his name is. I again didn't. Yeah, they showed up just around the time of Arise, Serpentor, Arise, and I saw some episodes with them before I moved. Gung Ho, that's my cousin's favorite character, I think. Maybe I'll give him one of these cards. Maybe special messages. Actually, my cousin, you should look up Drew Simpson and the Dre Gallery, because he did a bunch of art treatments of G.I. Joe comic book covers in pastels, I think. And I own a gaming store, and I'm going to be showcasing them in here at some point in time, because he wants to kind of have them moving around. There we go. There's Spirit. Rock and Roll, Short Fuse, Special Missions. Anyway, so you should check out Drew Simpson and the Dre Gallery. So he has a gallery, and he's a pretty great artist, and you can buy paintings or art treatments of G.I. Joe covers that he's done, and they're pretty great. So I would check that out if you're at all into that kind of thing. Here's checklist 2. So checklist, is there a checklist 1? I don't remember. Heavy artillery. Those were the first vehicles that came out. They were not mobile vehicles. They were just like different things that a squad would have access to, like artillery and a bunker and that kind of stuff, right? Oh, here's the cover again. So I'm glad I got 2 of those, because that's kind of, if I was going to display one, that's kind of what I would display. Did I get the special treatment quick already? I think I did. Yeah, bazooka, dial tone. Yeah, zap, Targat. Do not remember that. And Badger. I don't remember that vehicle either. So it must have been a later vehicle. I'm only a third of the way through here, and it is the longer video because I'm talking about it. But maybe now that we've discussed it, maybe I can speed it up a little bit. Another ice scraper, special missions, Voltar again, and now I think I'm starting to get into to doubles and triples and stuff. So I kind of wish they had a specific, like, slots like they do nowadays. Maybe back then they didn't really have slots in the way, so that I could quickly go through it, because they seem to be mixed in. No special pattern. Special missions with Dusty. Yeah, Dusty seemed to be the kind of guy that would go on special missions. I think it was a lot of it for me. Special missions was like Flint, second in command, because he was again a very military version of a character rather than the crazy, almost superhero-esque G.I. Joes of after the first wave. Crazy legs. Another Spirit. See what I mean? The special missions is mixed in there, and then this is mixed in there too. So it's difficult to go through these packs and sort them. Although maybe there's no point in sorting them on camera. I just kind of like seeing the different piles. Special missions. Oh, there we go. That's the answer to the question. Yes, there's a checklist 1. Attack vehicle vamp. Yes, I remember the vamp. I forgot. I started watching like G.I. Joe on YouTube, because you can go on YouTube and watch most G.I. Joe episodes, especially the first couple seasons, and they have a live feed that's constantly just pumping out G.I. Joe episodes. Anyway, there was a G.I. Joe episode I completely forgot about where a bunch of bullshit happens, and they end up in an alternate reality where Cobra won, and the vamp is in a cave and stuff like that. That's what reminded me of that. But it's kind of a cool episode. And there's another episode. There we go. Crocmaster. So he also sat on shelves recently in the classified line for quite a bit, even though he did well in the 90s, I remember. Anyway, so this one really weird episode where basically Cobra is after the MacGuffin device, which is silly. The reason I don't remember this is because it wasn't ridiculous to me as a kid, because as a kid I didn't know what a MacGuffin was, and it's just silly that the Cobra's after the MacGuffin device, and then Shipwreck is telling some story, and it's in like a more animated form, like as in like more cartoony, like Looney Toony cartoony. There's Globulus. So this is G.I. Joe movie stuff. This is basically around the time period that I stopped being able to watch G.I. Joe. So Desert Scorpion, I vaguely remember those. So if you haven't gone back and watched the old G.I. Joe episodes, especially the first couple seasons and Pyramid of Darkness and the different, so basically G.I. Joe came out in the 80s. So it started with the toys, and then they got to sell the toys, they got Marvel to write comics, and the guy that wrote it was Larry Hama, and he had this thing he was going to pitch for S.H.I.E.L.D. and Nick Fury that he just kind of adapted to the G.I. Joe storyline. And then, those original Joes came out that were the Sky Striker, that is iconic. I wished I had backed the HasLab for that, but I didn't. Anyway, the what was I saying? Yeah, so then they were very military minded, and the comics that Larry Hama was writing was basically, his recollection. I think he was, I don't know, but most of the characters had been in Vietnam, and that was kind of because it was, the early 80s, so it was plausible that they were in Vietnam. Nowadays, it's not plausible that they were in Vietnam, unless you're writing it as if it's in the 80s. Now, that is a memorable cover. I like that one. Yeah, so I think this is the first time we're seeing that Cobra Commander. So then, as it transitioned into, the more costumey G.I. Joes, and the cartoon started introducing those Joes, and then eventually the comics did as well. The series becomes more adventurous and wild and crazy. But I mean, even starting with the Pyramid of Darkness, it's, high-minded sci-fi that's not necessarily grounded in any sort of reality, just kind of, it's kind of using sci-fi, but really it's telling wild sci-fi that wasn't really plausible. So the Rattler is also iconic. The Sky Striker and the Rattler. Anyway, so because G.I. Joe is not really realistic. I mean, okay, it's realistic, it's not real. It's not like I remember Joseph Gordon-Levitt was being interviewed by somebody when he was in the movie, promoting the movie, and they're like, "Oh, so you've starred now in a few military movies. Is this kind of a thing for you?" And he's like, "Wait a minute, wait. I wouldn't say that G.I. Joe is a military movie." And that's the thing, is G.I. Joe is wild fantasy science fiction. That's kind of how I see it. And so the idea when the movie came out that people were like, "Oh, it's crazy and it's got a dumb plot because it's not believable, this device that he's created." I'm like, that's G.I. Joe. Have you not watched G.I. Joe? And that's the essence of G.I. Joe. That's what made it so special. And to get rid of that, to try to make it even more realistic and grounded in reality, I think it's a mistake. I think you need to go big with G.I. Joe. And that's what made it cool. But you can, that's the thing, is they still kind of kept the grounded militariness in the sort of, in the way that people mostly acted. That's another iconic cover. I guess all the covers are iconic, so. No, that, yeah. Just, I don't know. Expecting G.I. Joe to not be science fantasy is a mistake, I think. I think that that's the way you go with G.I. Joe, or you just make something else, right? It's kind of like, I don't know. I don't know that they try to make the Transformers realistic, but it'd be like trying to do that, and it just doesn't work, right? You either you buy into it or you don't, right? So why bother try to get people interested in it that aren't going to buy into it, right? Because then you're going to lose the people that love it for what it is. And I'm sure anyone watching at this point loves it for what it is, and I don't expect much disagreement. Maybe there is someone out there that loves this G.I. Joe stuff, but wants it to be actually real and not crazy sci-fi, but I doubt it. I think most G.I. Joe fans love the science fantasy of it all. Special mission, let me mix those two up. Well, we're over halfway through, so, there's that. What have you guys seen in this that you really like? And did you open these? Okay, so let's start with that. What is it that you like? What is it that, if you were opening these, what would you be hoping to get? And, what are your favorite cards? What are your favorite characters? What is it that would excite you about these? And after watching this, are you planning on getting some of this stuff yourself? Because there are other people selling this on eBay, and it's for a booster box from the 90s. It's dirt cheap, relatively speaking. I opened up a box of Babylon 5 collectible card games on another YouTube video that I did last week, and they're also dirt cheap. And I recommended nobody go out and buy those because it's a dead card game and you can't really play it, and it's just really screenshots from the TV show, so there's not even like special art or anything like that, so I don't know why you would bother unless you were going to play the game with your friends, right? You actually had people who wanted to play the game with you. But in this case, even though these are also technically screenshots and also just panels from comic books, I don't know, it's just way better because the treatment of it. I guess maybe the graphic design of the Babylon 5 cards wasn't the greatest and it didn't really excite you, or it didn't excite me. So, like if I wasn't playing that Babylon 5 game, then I definitely wouldn't care about the Babylon 5 cards, right? But I care about these cards. I'm really glad I got these. And they were worth it for the price I paid, and I probably would have paid more if that's how much they cost. There, I think that's the cover for the silent episode, is it? Or the silent issue, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, have you seen anything in here that excites you or that, evokes your memory of the show? Like, are there things, like, you're a fan of G.I. Joe, but you maybe haven't revisited the Sunbow cartoons in a long time? Or, you haven't since you were a kid. Have you decided to now, based on what I was talking about and the different storylines that maybe you also forgot about, and the heart of the show? I think this is must be a later cover, because I don't remember that one. I think like after even I was out of G.I. Joe. So basically, I played with G.I. Joes until I was like, I don't know, in grade 9 or 10. And obviously that didn't win me any popularity contests. I don't know if anyone knew, but I mean, I did go to school with duotangs that were Ninja Turtles in grade 9, and I remember everyone else had just like, I guess more older kids stuff and not kiddie kids stuff like Ninja Turtles. Anyway, people made fun of me behind my back. I could tell they were acting a little different and mocking my Ninja Turtle duotang, which, I already wasn't a popular kid and became even less so with that. Anyway, by about grade 9 or 10 is when even I was not buying any more G.I. Joe toys, and eventually the only thing I did with G.I. Joe toys in grade 10, 11 is Christmas. I would, play with them in the Christmas tree, just because it was for whatever reason, it was a thing I did when I was a kid. I really loved playing with G.I. Joes in the Christmas tree, so it was just something I did every year to remind myself of being a kid, but it wasn't because I felt like playing with toys anymore. And so by the end of high school, obviously those G.I. Joes were just in a box and, unloved. And eventually, I'm guessing they went to my nephew's box, and most of them at this point were, they were well worn, if not destroyed, depending on the character. Some character I melted down and I painted with like my sister's nail polish to make it look like blood and guts and shit, right? So So my G.I. Joes were not in pristine condition, so it doesn't really matter that they disappeared because they went to my nephews, and then I'm guessing my sister eventually, whatever was left, which was probably almost nothing, went to like a secondhand store or just the dump, which is unfortunate. But I mean, I wasn't trying to hoard my G.I. Joe toys because I really didn't think they were going to be worth anything. And I mean, as far as collectible toys go, I mean, they're not worth nothing. Like there's some collectible toys that are basically worthless. Some toys from the past that aren't collectible, therefore are worthless. But G.I. Joe is sort of just in the middle. Oh, I remember this treatment of Gung Ho. So that was my favorite Gung Ho. And I liked Gung Ho in this outfit, and that was my favorite Gung Ho toy, right? Whereas I think my cousin likes the original Gung Ho toy. And I forgot that he was he was connected to the, or that he would, like I knew his name was Gung Ho when I had the toy, but I forgot about the Gung Ho from the cartoon in his vest. I forgot that outfit because I hadn't watched G.I. Joe in a couple years when I got that toy. Anyway, so, you know, I eventually moved on from G.I. Joe, but then, you know, I still always kind of talked about G.I. Joe, you know, from time to time, like maybe once or twice a year or whatever, and reminisced about G.I. Joe with friends who also had loved G.I. Joe as kids, but it was just that kind of thing where you just reminisce, remember that thing. And then the G.I. Joe movie was coming out, and I happened to, I think it was after or before, I can't remember. It was 2008, so I don't remember when the movie came out, but in 2008, I was in Vancouver, and this is around the time lots of people were getting tattoos, and I decided I wanted to get a tattoo, but like for about 10 years, I'd thought about getting a tattoo, and I couldn't think of what I'd want to, you know, be on my body until I was an old man, and what would be that I'd be proud to have. And then one day I just happened, because like there was a bunch of people that I was working with that were had recently got tattoos or were going to get tattoos, and then I realized this. That is what I would want on my body my entire life. So I got it, and at the time I don't think anyone really had this tattoo except maybe the same year I think Seth Green had a picture with him with that tattoo, so I don't know whether he already had that tattoo or he got it after I got it. There are people that have it now. It's not a common tattoo, but it's not incredibly rare. And it's funny because people will ask me about that tattoo, and some people will recognize it for G.I. Joe. It's very rare that someone will recognize it. Will be able to say, "Hey, I know you got a G.I. Joe tattoo." Maybe it's becoming more common for people to do that. But anyway, most people don't. They ask me what the tattoo is, and I have to tell them two things because it's based on the I Ching, and it's hexagram 63, the final hexagram already completed, or my favorite definition, contrary to not yet. Anyway, almost nobody gets that one, right? Basically, there's the only, I think, one or two people, and one of them was like someone who had taught in China or was a historian of Chinese history, so obviously they would know that. But basically no one knows the I Ching connection. And almost nobody recognizes the G.I. Joe connection, but often when people notice that it's there, because it's not necessarily, once you see it, it catches your eye, but it doesn't immediately catch your eye, so people kind of don't even notice that I have a tattoo. So very few people ask about it, but when they do, I have to explain both definitions because, you know, I like both definitions because I like the already completed thing and the contrary to not yet thing, like the idea that, yeah, you're done. I don't, like, at the time especially, I'm like, yeah, I like who I am who I am, and that's what I am, right? There's more growth, yeah, whatever, but I am me, right? So I don't need to discover anything new about myself. I can discover more things about the world, but I'm me. And that's kind of how the tattoo seems to me. But in the context of G.I. Joe, it's just, I guess they get it when they finish their training, and that's what it signifies, that they're part of the clan, because that's the clan symbol. And that's why they chose hexagram 63. I don't know whether, I'm pretty sure when they designed this symbol, the person designing it was having this in mind and knew it was hexagram 63 because it's obvious, right? But anyway, we end on the Mobat, which is, I guess, fitting because that's kind of where, when the Mobat came out, I think that's when G.I. Joe really, like, it wasn't its peak. It was that was the beginning of the, you know, the slope upwards towards, you know, the craziness of the G.I. Joe franchise. And then the peak was probably somewhere in the late 80s, and then, you know, denouement for most of the early 90s, and then it kind of petered out mid-90s, and then we ended up where we are. So if you enjoyed this, let me know. Let me know what cards you're looking for, whether you're going to maybe pick some of this up on eBay and open it yourself. I'd love to see it. I mean, it seems like, I don't know whether I got a full set, but did seem like I got a lot of the cards, so I don't know. I might even get another box if I want to collect the full set. I'm not sure I do. But in any case, let me know what you think of the video. Let me know what you think of G.I. Joe, and let me know what you think of the cards.